Right.
Yay.
Welcome to the Press Toward the Goal podcast. Like thousands of sports mad Aussies, I've always dreamt of representing Australia, whether it be at football, at cricket, at the Olympics, at anything really. I'm slowly beginning to realise that dream is probably never going to come to fruition though. It has certainly happened for today's guest, however, who has donned the green and gold in three separate sporting disciplines, which we're going to look into on today's episode. Elana Withnall, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to have the opportunity to share.
Yeah, perfect. Like I said, you've certainly achieved a lot in your sporting pursuits, and I know even outside of sport, you're certainly a go-getter, lots of energy, really motivated to do a lot. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with you.
Fantastic. Can't wait to get into it.
Perfect. Thank you. Just actually before we get too deep into things, Elana or Lani, which do you prefer?
Well, it's like Alana, but with an E, so Elana, but it actually stumps a lot of people. So I just say, call me Lani.
Lani, no worries, Lani. Right, let's get into a few quick questions, which I go through with all the guests we have on the show. What did you want to be when you were a child?
Well, it's clear as day for me, actually, having witnessed one of our greats, Kathy Freeman, win the 2000 Olympics. I was actually 7 years old at that moment, and it was like, yes, I want to do that with my life. And yeah, 22 years, nearly 23 years later, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is the most used app on your phone?
Most used app? Oh, goodness me. Probably Insta, which isn't a good or a bad thing. I'd like to say it was my Bible app, but I'm working on that in my daily devotions. But yeah, I'd have to say I'm more of an Insta fan at the moment.
Yeah, very good. Something that you eat or drink too much of?
There we go. I am a big coffee fan, so I actually have my little business called Coffee with Kindness, and so I'd have to say it used to be coffee, and I'm a real coffee drinker. So to me, that's long black, no milk, no sugar.
Yep.
But working on balancing that out with coconut water to stay hydrated. So between coffee and coconut water.
Yeah, very good. Do you have a piece of sports memorabilia or sporting equipment which is really sentimental or valuable to you, which you'd find hard to part with?
Oh goodness me. Looking back, I'm a big photos person, so I kind of tend to hoard photos more than anything. Um, but if I'd have to say memorabilia wise, I do have my bobsled partners, Jana Pittman's Sochi 2000 and, oh gosh, 18 Olympic Games gloves that she wore. So I have to say that's a pretty special one for me. Having partnered with her to do the bobsled, but then also, yeah, she became such a great mate to me. I'm fortunately one of her daughter's godmothers, and
Wow.
yeah, that is a really sentimental piece. Not only from my sporting career, but having been her fan growing up, writing letters to her as I was young, and then it kind of went full circle. Then having her not only as my mate and my training partner, but my bobsled partner. So yeah, that one's pretty special.
Yeah, wow. I look forward to kind of discussing that in a little bit more detail as we go through your story, because that's just one of the many things that you've kind of achieved and pursued during your sporting career.
Yeah.
I think that we've kind of got a little bit of an insight into this in a couple of the things you've said already, but who was your sporting hero when you were growing up?
Oh, definitely those two women that I mentioned earlier. I'd have to say, yeah, Kathy for one. One of the Aussie goats. I think
Yeah.
she's unreckoned with and will always be. Um, but then, yeah, definitely Yana. So I was a bit of a fangirl, being a hurdler growing up as well, and then meeting her for the first time. And then, yeah, having her join the training squad, it was pretty incredible to have, your idol as per se growing up, not only your training partner, but your teammate as well. So, yeah, she's someone I'll always be grateful for her inspiration and motivation, but also her camaraderie as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that it's probably safe for me to say that athletics was given your inspiration from Kathy Freeman, Jana Pittman. Athletics has always sort of been the sport that you've pursued from very early on when you were a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like most Aussie kids, I think I was thrown into a lot of things. Little A's from under eights, actually. Didn't do the tinies hots. I was a dancer for 18 years as well. So I'm doing primarily jazz ballet and classical ballet. But then I also did soccer and netball
Wow.
at a representative level as well. So right up until I was about 16, 17, and started to sort of be fortunate enough to medal in the athletics nationally. My parents sort of had to sit me down and be like, okay, Lani, we have to choose now. We have to specialize. You get there's too many things happening. So yeah, I think it took till I was about 16, 17 to specialize in track and field. But
Yep.
I think that holistic upbringing of having so many different disciplines only helped me be better in my athletics and develop all those skills that I wouldn't have otherwise, I think, if I just specialized from little A's onwards. So I'm really
Yep.
grateful for all those different sports, and I love being part of a team. So definitely playing those team sports was really great in my upbringing.
Yeah, I think for me, I've got two daughters. They both did dance at some stage in their life, and I think that would be really interesting for me. How has that helped with your other sports? Because obviously it's a lot of balance, a lot of core stuff. So do you think that that's kind of helped your development as an athlete?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Like, big shout out to Andrea Russell Academy of Dance in Taree. They, with all those skills that I learned from such a young age, as you said, balance, but discipline as well. Like, but people think, that classical ballet, anyway, is for girls, for women. It's typically, a female dominated sports, but it teaches you discipline in precision, and it teaches you, if you're learning some choreography, things like that, those kind of skills, and the agility to be able to adapt to that changing environment, music, if you're doing a group dance, that kind of things. It helped me, not only my athletics with my flexibility and mobility, I still have those skills now. Oh goodness, I haven't danced for probably 8 to 10 years now, but those skills that I learnt growing up are still pivotal and relevant in my career now.
Yeah.
Some other girls in my training partners, how are you so mobile or flexible? And I'm like, well, thanks to my dance background and having that, it still helps me now as an adult. Yeah, but also I guess it trains different parts of your brain, right? So you're learning choreography and that memory aspect. But then also, I think the music plays a key part as well, into core memory and the agility to be able to change and put all those dynamic skills together actually helped me on the footy field. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I was playing sevens, it's all about reading the game, agility, but then also remembering plays and
Yep.
remembering almost the choreography from the
Yeah.
dance, but choreography on the field. So yeah, it's helped massively.
Yeah. Well, I guess that with the combination of dance, athletics, those other sports in the early days, even in junior competition days, you had a ridiculous amount of tenacity and determination to compete, didn't you? Competing with injuries and that sort of thing, even from a really young age. Tell us about some of those.
Ah, goodness me. So, just to name a few, I've broken my foot 5 times over, broken my back at Olympic trials, season-ending concussion in the rugby to a near-death experience in the bobsled. So, yes, as you said, injury is something I'm not unfamiliar with, but I would say they're more accidents. I used to be very accident prone growing up. I certainly don't speak that over my life now, and I don't identify with that because, you know, you gotta put your mindset into, you know, what you want for your future. And I'm like, nope, that's my past. But yeah, I think injury teaches you a lot about grit, and it teaches you a lot about, you know, the human spirit and triumphing in times of trial and misfortune. You know, I think God calls his battlers, and I'm definitely an Aussie battler, and you know, proud to say it. But it's, you know, times of adversity where it's not so much about the adversity itself, but it's how you choose to overcome it. I think
that's good.
Yeah, that really matters. And it's where, you know, resilience isn't given, it's actually earned. That in turn makes you the kind of athlete that, you know, you were destined to be, that you were called to be, that, you know, I think God sees in you. You know, he wouldn't give you a battle that you're not strong enough to handle, a hurdle, you know, higher than what you can overcome. So it, yeah, it teaches you a lot about mental fitness just as much as physical fitness.
Yeah, and what has kept you going through all those trials? I'm sure that there's been days where you've thought, "Well, I could not be bothered doing this. This is too much hard work. I've done this too many times," or you know, that sort of thing. What keeps you going through those difficult times?
Yeah, look, plain as day, I'd have to say my faith and my relationship with Jesus, really, when it comes down to it. Because, you know, without that, oh gosh, I wouldn't be talking to you today about my, you know, career or these hurdles, because I would have been defeated, you know, without that strength and that backing. You know, he's my greatest teammate. You know, fall down 7, stand up 8. I think it's without that strength, knowing I'm competing not just for myself. Like, if it was for myself, it would simply be too hard. Um,
Yeah,
but knowing, you know, I have this, you know, out of this world strength from someone, you know, who controls the seas. It's like he's bigger than this sport, than this injury, than this moment. You know, without him, I would be so underqualified in all my different various sporting endeavors. But, you know, he equips those who take up the calling and makes them qualified.
yeah.
So, simply to put it, yeah, I wouldn't not only be still doing sport, but I don't think I would still be here, having survived, you know, 2 near-death experiences. Yeah, I simply can't afford not to believe.
Yeah, that's great. And it's almost as if what you're saying is it's a mental challenge more than it's obviously physical. The body's impacted by injuries. It's hard work physically, but the mental strength and determination of kind of having a goal or something to push towards is something which has been the real motivator for you. Am I hearing that right?
Oh, 100%, Jason. Like, I say to people, it's really more like 80-20. 80% of it is mental, and it's getting yourself to training. It's ticking off the one percenters. You know, I'm a big one percenter person. So it's, you know, doing your prehab before it gets to rehab. It's doing those little core exercises when you rock up to the track half an hour before everyone else. That not gets you one step ahead of your competitors as per se, but it's one step ahead of your former self.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's a real big mental thing, and believing that it's possible for you. I think that's a big step in my sporting journey that, you know, I've essentially failed 3 times at making an Olympics across 3 different sports. um, but without, you know, the mental fitness that my faith has provided, I simply wouldn't still be going. I wouldn't believe that this elusive Olympic dream is still possible for me.
Yeah.
Your beliefs get shaped quite a bit with every injury, every setback, every knockdown, every hurdle. But it's how you can in turn pick yourself back, set yourself up for that comeback, and believe that it is possible for you, in the depths of your heart, in the depths of your soul, that, if this is your destiny that you've been called to, then God will make a way. So,
Yeah.
and 9 times, out of 10, that's been the case where I've seen, so hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But through, my prayer life and through my walk, that he makes a way,
Yeah.
makes a way where there is none. And that's as simple as that, is, having that firm foundation in my faith in turn allows, my mental fitness to be, if not just as important as my physical, but more so important.
Yeah, that's so good. You mentioned there Olympic dream. So I'm going to take you back to June 2013, Oceania Championships. Tell us about that experience. You represented Australia. You were flag bearer at the Oceania Championships.
Yes, you've done your research. Absolutely. Look, that was my first honor of stepping foot in the green and gold after moving from a small country town in Old Bath, where I grew up, to Sydney in 2012 in pursuit of my World Junior campaign. So I was fortunate enough to qualify for the World Junior Championships that were in Barcelona that year. But that was where I broke my foot for the second time and had an accident on the track where a hurdle landed on my foot. And I didn't make the team that year, but it was one of the most growth-filled years as an 18-year-old moving into the big smoke, where it lit a fire in my belly to prove to myself that I would get that opportunity again, and that, I would one day represent in the green and gold. So 12 months later was the Oceania titles, and I earned the honor again of wearing the green and gold for the first time. It was there as the underdog that I also went on to fortunately win my first gold medal for Australia in the heptathlon.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in the heptathlon. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You grew up playing lots of different sports and even lots of different athletic events. Can you tell us a little bit about the heptathlon?
Yeah, by all means. So the heptathlon, is perfect for that kid like myself who can't specialize in their events. So, you're the one at the sports carnival that does everything. So that was definitely me growing up, and much to my detriment as you get older, it sort of impedes on your performance if you run from the 200 to the hurdles to the high jump, when the other girls are just doing that individual event. So the heptathlon, everyone does everything. It's a 2-day 7-eventer. So day 1 is the 100-meter hurdles, the high jump, the 200, and the shot put. And then day 2, we have the long jump, the javelin, and the 800 meters to cap it off.
Yeah, wow. It sounds like even training for that sort of event would be something which would be quite difficult to juggle and manage your strengths, kind of consolidating your strengths, working on your weaknesses, because you will obviously have particular events that you are stronger at. Other athletes maybe have a weakness where you're strong where they're weak, that sort of thing. So is there a little bit of strategy in that as well, even for the event preparation and even competing in those competitions where you're trying to kind of save maybe something because it's, like you say, over 2 days?
Yeah, I suppose everyone definitely has their favorites or their strengths, or the events that are worth, so it's on a point system. So for instance, the hurdles is worth more points than the 200, but then the high jump's worth more points than the long jump. So it's on a global point ranking system.
Okay.
Definitely for me growing up, my strengths were hurdles and jumps. So that's where I earned all my points in the heptathlon. But also coming from a 400 hurdles background, just for fun, the 800 proved to be one of my strongest events, which was probably as a collective, most athletes' least favorite events. You're just competing in a 2-day grueling event and you've got to run 2 laps, which is more like a sprint these days.
Doesn't sound like fun.
No, it's not a fun way to end the heptathlon, but having that sort of speed endurance background was actually, one of my secret weapons, fortunately, where I got to earn a lot of points right at the end as well.
Yeah, fantastic. You had that success at the Oceania Championships. We move forward a couple of years, though, and you find yourself in Canada doing bobsled training. How does that happen?
Well, when you break your back at the Rio 2016 Olympic trials in the second last event of the heptathlon, and I unfortunately haven't been able to complete a heptathlon ever since.
Wow.
But look, it called me away from the sport after all the rehab, after I could, learn to walk again, let alone run again. I guess I was looking for my next challenge. And, during that time, I went back to 400 hurdles because that's what I did growing up outside of the heptathlon. And while I couldn't throw the javelin again, I focused on, that event for a little bit and had some national success. It was there that one of my idols, as we spoke about before, Yana Pittman, joined my training squad post her Winter Olympic campaign in 2014 to go to Sochi. And, she just had, I think, a second child, and she was looking to make a comeback for Rio. But in the meantime, we were looking ahead. We both missed out on qualifying for Rio that year, unfortunately. But looking ahead, she wanted to go back to the bobsled in time for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. So, looking ahead, she said, Lani, how do you feel about going to Canada in 2 weeks to learn how to drive a bobsled for Australia? So, me being a uni student at the time, I had to get a 4th part-time job to pay for the flights. But, I said yes to the opportunity, yes to the calling. And next minute, I was in my own cool running story, essentially. And I was at bobsled driving school in Calgary in Canada. So, found myself there amongst the Jamaicans. There is a Jamaican bobsled team. And, we were a bobsledder.
Wow. It is a funny story that you tell about you ending up there. I actually used to play soccer when I was growing up with a guy called Chris Spring. I grew up on the Sunshine Coast. He was a bit of a sprinter. He kind of competed nationally and that sort of thing. And I lost touch with him for a few years and discovered him again and found out that he was actually bobsledding, and he represented Australia at the 2010 Olympics, Winter Olympics, and then kind of deferred his nationality to Canada, and he's been to 4 Winter Olympics now. So a bloke who grew up surfing on the beaches of the Sunshine Coast, 4-time Winter Olympian. So it's just crazy how that sort of thing happens.
Oh my goodness, that's such a fantastic story. I love it. I bet even though he's Canadian now, you can still pick the Aussie, because like when it snows, we're outside going, oh my goodness, that crazy person.
That's right, yeah. So your time over there, how did that kind of happen? You were there for a month, or was it longer than that?
So I was there for about 3 months. So basically you get involved in a sort of world training camp, as per se, where people come from all over, all different countries. There was, the USA team to the Chinese team to the Japanese, to a team from Virgin Islands, believe it or not. And you sort of meet collectively, and there's a lot of people developing athletes like myself that, are trying to learn the skills to be a bobsledder. There was also skeleton athletes there as well, and a few lugers, which I find incredible as well.
That's crazy, that event, that sport.
Yeah, it's kind of like a camp where you just immerse yourself not only in this lifestyle, but yeah, learning the skills to in turn hopefully be good enough to then be on the Olympic team one day. So yeah, you learn all about, not only what it involves to be training as a bobsled athlete. I learned that I had to put on 8 kilos very quickly to transform for me, from a former heptathlete into, being able to push that, 150 kilo bobsled as fast as possible. So it's like body weight to power ratio.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
So we slide during the day. We lift together as a team, and then sometimes we even went back and slid during the evening as well.
And you mentioned you took a 4th job on to pay to get to Canada and everything like that. It's not all glamorous, is it? I mean, this is all self-funded. Was the Australian Olympic Committee supporting it all? Was there any support externally?
Unfortunately, until you make that games, apart from my rugby experience, all of my sporting endeavours have indeed been self-funded. So
Wow.
is that, I guess trying to develop Australian athletes, there's not quite the funding there yet for it to be, a full-time gig, a full-time sport. I think that's why so many of our current Olympians, are have that second career. They've been to university, they've got a few degrees, or they're working in their own businesses, as entrepreneurs, just to be able to afford to earn the honour of representing Australia.
Yeah. Wow. So I understand that there was an incident where you had a bit of a crash with when you were driving the bobsled at one stage. Can you tell us how that happened and what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, this story doesn't end with a lucky egg, like the Jamaicans in Cool Runnings. But yeah, it was one day we had a busy training schedule that day, so it's quite fatiguing. Where you're lifting in the morning, then you're on the ice, and then you have a couple of hours break, and then you're back sliding in the evening. So during this time to recover, you're eating, you're sleeping, you're doing everything you can, because when you're actually sliding, you take G-force. So it's kind of like a NASA pilot as per se. Because you're going that fast, you're absorbing the G's, which makes you quite exhausted, makes you quite fatigued afterwards. So yeah, big fatigue day. This was one of my final runs, the end of the evening, after doing all those things during the day. But it was a run like no other. Fortunately, I didn't have Yana behind me during this experience. I was driving something called a monobob, where it's just you, yourself, and single person bobsled. And we were going down the mountain. It was a run like no other. Started off really good until the flap on my motorcycle helmet kept slipping up.
Oh.
Unfortunately, you're going 120 kilometers an hour, so the eyes start watering, and you keep trying to flip that flap back down. It's similar to driving a motorcycle. If you oversteer, you can sort of spin out, as per se, and crash the sled. But also, we are driving a roller coaster that has no brakes as well. So there's no stopping that thing once it started. Turn 3 was normal. Turn 4, my flap is still coming up. I lose sight, oversteer, and suddenly I'm upside down, going 120 kilometers an hour.
Not good.
Next thing I know, slam goes my head into the bobsled, bang to the other side of the sled, bang on the back of the ice next, and I'm a little bit concussed. I'm definitely a prayer when things are going right, when things are going wrong. I'm constantly praying. So I prayed, I surrendered it all to God in that moment, that I would make it to the finish line in one piece, that I would see my mum, hug my mum again back in Australia, and that I would make it to the end. But something in that moment told me, I truly believe the spirit was talking to me, telling me to tuck my head basically into the sled because there's nothing protecting your head. And I made it to the finish line in that position, unscathed.
Wow.
And then as the ambulance sirens were around me, meeting me at the finish line, you know, I was still tucked into the sled upside down. So I had to, a few gentlemen, it took to flip me back upright. But as my coach ran over to me after this experience, he said, Lani, I don't know what made you tuck your head into the sled when you did, but if you didn't, you would have been decapitated just now.
No way. Wow, that is a miracle then that you got out of that alive.
I can't, you know, I have no words other than by the grace of God that I am still here today. You know,
Wow.
that he spared me in that moment and that I'm here sharing this story with you. So my goodness, I am forever grateful for that for that grace that I received then, and to be able to share this miracle with you now.
Yeah. Was that incident something which kind of made you think, hey, I don't know if I want to do this and move on back to Australia?
Yeah, I have to say, you know, being in a Canadian hospital where I knew no one, by myself on the other side of the world, you know, it showcased to me that although I have this big Olympic dream, it's not worth my life. And at the end of the day, you know, God wanted me here for a reason. You know, he spared me and I don't want to mess with that. So it was back to running in straight lines, back to Australia for me. I retired from bobsled that day.
Yeah, probably a good call. You say you come back to Australia, back to athletics. How do you end up in rugby sevens?
Well, it was actually that transition from the development squad and all the work I did in the bobsled that made me more equipped to be a rugby athlete. You know, putting on those 10 kilos of muscle to be able to play the bobsled really transitioned into being able to tackle and take contact on the field. So I again, once I was all right in the head, I went back to Australia and got involved in some development seven squads. This was part of the recruitment for the National Seven Series. It's the Aon Seven Series.
Okay.
Which after a good 6 to 8 months of hard work, you know, not playing touch growing up was quite a detriment to me. I had no ball skills. But I certainly had the speed on the line, and I think being on the wing, you know, that was definitely my strength. But I had to learn how to read the game, how to ruck, how to be in a scrum, how to, you know, just predict what my opponents were going to do by watching their hips. I got a flat-ended footy where I would do 100 passes to the wall one way a day, 100 passes the other way. You know, I'd practice tackling my mates, and it was then I earned my first Aon Sevens team for the mighty Sydney Rays at the time, and to play on the National Seven Series for a couple of years. But you know, with the 2020 Olympics in my sights, then now as a footy player, that's sort of the big one that we were aiming for. But unfortunately, it wasn't in God's will, and I had a really bad concussion on the circuit, which saw me ruled out of the rest of the national season ahead of the 2020 Tokyo selections.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I admire your tenacity and your determination so much. So many times you've had incidents happen where you could have just said, oh, I'm done with this. This is too much hard work. I mean, you know, maybe this doesn't look like it's working out, but full credit to you. And I think it shows the person that you are. You just pick yourself up and just have another go.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I you know, I owe it to not being qualified but being equipped by God to be able to do this. But, you know, my motto, I guess, is I'd rather live my life with more wows than what ifs. So at the end of the day, I'd love to give anything a red hot go. And, you know, you got to put yourself out there to discover the what nows. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something else you gave a go was Ninja Warrior?
Yes, we sure did. So when we were concussed, ruled out of the rest of the rugby season, but I was thinking about going back to track and field, but the season was already nearly finished itself. I thought, what's another sporting challenge that will get me, you know, keep me fit, keep me strong, great preseason. Let's give Ninja Warrior a crack as you do. And again, I was just a footy chip going into that, you know. I was probably 20 kilos heavier than any other female on that course, but I made it past, round one of auditions, and then made it to the live auditions. And, you know, I'm that person that is very vocal on the field. So I thought, you know, let's make this a team thing. And in the live auditions, I was like, come on, guys, you got one more round. You know, you can do it. And I think I was chosen more so, for less ninja skills, more Lani skills in my personality, as it's a TV show at the end of the day. But yeah, I much to my surprise, made it onto the show, and next minute we were falling in water on national television. So yeah, it was such another amazing experience that I'm glad I said yes to the calling.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't left thinking what if, or what if I tried that. And yeah, I just, you know, wanted to prove to myself and hopefully a lot of other people, you know, that you're more resilient than you think. You know, if I can do it, then you can do it. So I think always say yes to opportunities.
Yeah, awesome. And what's happening for Elana Withnall now in terms of sporting pursuits? What are you chasing now?
Yeah, so bit of another twist to my story. There's always a few twists. I actually found myself, this might be a little bit woo-woo to some people, but I had a prophetic dream where, you know, the spirit called me in a dream and said, triple jump. And, you know, you have to question yourself in those moments, because it's almost like too random or too obscure to be true. But, you know, just like anything in my life, I'm like, right, well, if I'm being called here, I don't have to know why. I don't have to know what for. But I know that he will qualify me and equip me. So next minute, I'm back at my childhood, my childhood love, athletics, track and field. And the triple jump was always my favorite fun event growing up. So it was something I did alongside the heptathlon, but just as a fun event, but would fortunately be good enough to medal nationally still somehow.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, had a crack in about 10 years, but I thought, oh, why not? So because thanks to our global pandemic, we actually had to postpone Olympics. So even though I failed to make the 2021 for the rugby, I thought, you know, I've got a good 18 months now to requalify myself as a triple jumper. So I took to the calling, and I, you know, joined a club, got training, surrounded myself with some wonderful humans, and much to my dismay, again, made it to the Olympic trials back in April 2021. And, you know, it was there that I guess I overcome many doubts to myself that I would be a triple jumper again. You know, I'm having to, again, remold, you know, like clay, like the potter, myself into what a triple jumper is again. You know, lose those 8 kilos, train myself as a plyometric and power athlete rather than just pure speed and agility, and re-equip myself in this skill. But after qualifying for Olympic trials, I actually went emergency surgery 4 months out from the trials to remove a
Wow.
4 centimeter tumor off my uterus. So just another hurdle, right? Just another hurdle. But, I was on the bench, but I was still in the game because I believed, I was called back to this sport for a reason. So, once we got the all clear, we were back to training. We were back to keeping this dream alive. But when it came down to it, the big day simply didn't go my way. And I, failed to make the distance to qualify for the Olympics again. But no one did. No one qualified for the triple jump at this Olympics. So, we didn't have any representatives there. But I stayed the path and thought, okay, next one's Commonwealth Games. So leading into this year, 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games. But I think in my story anyway, I think God's quite humorous. loves to put a few obstacles in there, to have a little chuckle, but also again testing that mental resilience and that ability to keep on keeping on. So when my coach came back from the Tokyo Olympics, as one of my squad members made it in the high jump, he said to me, "Lani, you're too old. It's too late. You're never going to make it. You should retire." And he spoke those words over my life. I truly believe that integrity is a ingredient in your recipe to resilience that you simply can't go without. And, it's the skills you learn as the athlete, not so much the accolades as the athlete, that are more important than any Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
So, during that moment, you can choose to behave in many different ways, but I chose integrity. And, I still have to see this person quite often at the track, quite often at training sessions, but it's almost like, that's just another hurdle in my way now. Coaching myself, being self-coached in the triple jump alongside my amazing sprints coach now. We were on a campaign together to prove, the unconventional way, is still possible. So I took myself into this year's Commonwealth Games trials, self-coached in the triple jump, and with the spirit alive in me, lighting that fire to believe that it's still possible.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I ended up jumping the distance for the Commonwealth Games trials, self-coached, self-taught.
Awesome.
But 2 weeks too late at training where it didn't matter.
Well, you know that you've got it there though. That's like sometimes you need these things to keep the fire burning. But I do get sorry.
Oh no, sorry. Absolutely, just agreeing with you. This absolutely right. You put these trials in front of you, but I think it's in God's timing. He sometimes says, here's the door, but it's closed right now. It will be opened in my timing, in my way, and kind of surrendering to that, even though we don't know why. That's what faith is. It's believing, it's believing the good news. If not now, all will be revealed in his timing.
Yeah, and I guess that with that kind of foundation of your faith and your belief in this being God's will for your life, I suppose that you don't look at things the way that people do a lot of the time in a binary. I won a gold medal, I've won. If I didn't win a gold, I've failed. I get the impression that to you, success and the measure of success that you use isn't necessarily defined by that.
No, absolutely not. Like gold medals, green and gold uniforms will come and go. But as I said, it's the athlete and in turn person that you learn to become from all of these endeavors and all of these life experiences that, is much more important than any of the achievements or accolades. I truly believe I wasn't called back to this sport to be an Olympian as per se. If that happens, then that's in God's will. But I was, called back to make this sport better than when I left it.
That's great.
So, treating that as an act of service, as, I'm volunteering at Little Athletics now, helping the next generation. I'm, helping equip my training partners that, are young in the sport with this 22 years of knowledge and wisdom that I've been gifted. It's like, yeah, I want to help the next generation. I want to help those people know that, it's not just to glorify you and uphold yourself in these worldly ways. At the end of the day, to me, triple jump has become an act of worship. I use the hashtag joyful jumping because it's such a childlike sense of joy that I've been gifted coming back to my childhood favorite event. It's like I get to go to the track every day. It's like I'm in Little A's again. And,
that's good.
I hope to use that for something more than me. It's not for my glory, it's for his glory, and to hopefully, use that to bring people to know that there's another way, that it doesn't have to be this hard. And, fortunately, as I have, surrendered my sport and my, my training every day I'm out on the track, treating it like worship, fortunately, it's been the most uninjured I've ever been in my life, touch wood. And I have to say, things have become a lot more free-flowing, a lot more, just like water, free-flowing, since I have chosen to see my sport in this way and to surrender it all to him.
That's great. We're running out of time, but I've got a couple of quick listener questions for you. I've got one from Colin Coulthard, who uses the handle road_to_sub_12, road to sub 12 on Instagram. He says, what advice would you give athletes who feel like they've plateaued or even dropped in performance while they're recovering from injury on the comeback trail?
That's a great question. Thanks so much, Colin, for reaching out there. I think especially young athletes, they can see, the present moment being more important than the future. It's like living right in the now. But it's important to know and to remember big picture things. So I like to encourage young athletes. I think I spoke to one of my mates just last night on the track, to see your training and your sporting life in a rule of thirds, where 1/3 of the time you'll be doing PBs, you'll be going amazing, you'll be uninjured, you'll be loving life. 1/3 of the time, though, it will be average and everything will be, just okay. And you'll be still going to training, it'll be on track. But 1/3 of the time, everything will be going wrong. You may be injured, you may be down in the dumps, but it's circular, everything that goes around will be balanced out in time. And just to stay the path and to it won't always be straight and narrow, but as long as you keep on keeping on. And I think that's the crux of it all. It's half of it is getting to training, is persisting through those injuries, through those tough times. So just keep on keeping on and remember that big picture. Yeah,
very good. And the last one I've got from Zach, who uses the handle Peace Begins on Your Plate on Instagram. How important is your diet and what you eat when it comes to peak performance?
Great question. Thank you, Zach. Look, fortunately for me, I've got a different relationship with food than most people, as I do suffer celiac disease. So that cuts out a lot of the bad carbs, fortunately. But no, I encourage people to see their body as a vessel for purpose, rather than, as a former personal trainer myself, a lot of people are looking to get that ideal physique or to look a certain way for society standards. I think eating and nourishing your body for its purpose, for me, that's my triple jump at the moment. I have to ensure I'm eating enough to ensure my energy input is more than my energy output, so that I can do all these things, I'm asking my body to do, to be the best equipped possible. So I say, think of nourish and not punish. And as long as you're fueling your body with the right petrol, then you should stay out of the mechanic shop.
Perfect. We finish every episode of the show with the same question, which I'm going to ask you. You've worn so many hats and done so many things, but how does Lani Withnall want to be remembered?
Oh, look, I think, I think as someone who made your day better than when it started, I think, joy is being such an agape for me, like my gift to the world. And if I can make someone's day better just by being in it or playing a small part in it, that's how I'd like to be remembered above everything else.
Yeah, perfect. I'm not surprised at all. Your attitude is absolutely fantastic. I'm certainly inspired. I love the idea of not having what ifs, but having wow moments, pursuing those moments and things where, you just don't know what's going to happen, but you just give it a go and there's a wow there. That's absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed chatting with you today, Lani. It's great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to share. And God bless. Just keep on keeping on, guys.
Thanks, Lani.
Thanks.